Awesome. I know by Thursday we can all barely speak, so I got to make sure I have a microphone today. Looking forward to telling you all about and talking with this group all about bold ideas and really how tech is driving that. But first, I figured we can just kick off now that it's Thursday. We're all at Cannes. If you could introduce yourself, I guess first and foremost, and then if it's your first time at Cannes, what is the most surprising thing to you? And if you've been here 10 years, why do you keep coming?
Hi, so I'm Faizan. I'm the CEO of a company called Roll.ai. We help with AI workflows to make video production a lot easier for you. This is my first time, and I would say the biggest surprise is how hot it is, and then the next surprise is how busy it is.
Extremely hot, right? Anyone who thinks Cannes is like a vacation for all of us is definitely not tracking.
Very wrong. I'm Christiana Cacciapuoti. I run go-to-market strategy for Madhive. Our kind of claim to fame is local. So we help advertisers plan, activate, and measure hyper-local campaigns just at massive scale. So think millennial moms who want to buy green in Biloxi, Mississippi, times 50,000 campaigns over 200 markets all over the country. Oh, and Cannes, not my first time. I think it's 5 or 6 for me. Would echo the surprise on hot. Also surprising that there's no air conditioning in most spaces, despite how much money we all spend here.
I'm Natalie Silverstein. I'm Chief Innovation Officer with Collectively. We are the global leader in influencer marketing. So we work with creators at massive scale for a lot of the brands that you probably all know and love. Brands like Dove, brands like Salesforce. Here we are, a lot of marketers, a lot of salespeople, et cetera. And this is not my first Cannes rodeo. This is third. And I think what's surprising, or maybe not surprising to me, but maybe surprising to other people who have been kind of tracking the growth of the creator economy, is just how much more I think the festival has embraced creators. I think over the last several years, we've seen that continue to grow. And now it's like, I've run into like 7 or 8 different people who we've worked with, creators just on the Croisette, and it's a big topic of conversation in general.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I'm a little late. In time. I'm like,
no, you're literally perfect time. So we were just kind of kicking off with introducing yourself, of course, but sort of the take on Cannes. If this is your first time, what's the most surprising thing? If this is your 10th time, why do you keep coming?
That's a great question. It's hard to get places. Like here this morning. I feel like it's way more crowded and compact, and there's more going on than years in the past. But I keep coming because I think the quality of conversations, the learning, the inspiration, I always walk away feeling exhausted, but inspired.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm Brittany Claus, moderating this panel. I think it's even rare sometimes. It's actually only my second time, so don't give me too hard of a time. The brand people usually are the people getting asked the questions. And not my first time either. I think I keep coming back, similar reasons. I think the conversations that we have, the thought leadership, personally, I think it's just really great for your own brand and building your career and people that you get to talk to and learn from. My hot take on Cannes is that you do like some of the most bougie things you're ever gonna do, like fly in helicopters and go on yachts, but then you also feel like you're camping, in your room that you have to stay in for the week. So, so on to really the topic at hand, and I'll go to you first. There's been so much conversation this week around AI and tech, and this conversation is really around the brief, right? But how is tech being built in there, and how is tech driving creativity, and how that fuels how we're briefing our agencies?
Yeah, so I think if you look at tech, it's basically a tool that enables you. You're still doing the same things, but I think you will see more abundance. You will see people be able to produce more content at much lower cost than before. So as an example, in our case, we create an AI video production system that doesn't need really, really expensive equipment to create high quality videos. And then we create an AI edit for a panel, for a customer testimonial, for a webinar in about 2 hours after you shoot it. And then you get social clips immediately, quickly, right? So a bunch of scenarios that we have seen is, even in companies that did not have a budget constraint, the biggest companies that you can imagine, they are just ending up producing a lot more content, right? So it's not actually, I want to say even like we have seen hiring related to this, because it might be that you were doing a it might be that you're a top 10 kind of public company, but when you do an event, you're doing video at your main stage, but you're not doing event at all the other rooms, and now you're doing that. Maybe previously you were only creating 5 social clips, now you're creating 50.
Do you think brands are embracing it enough? And I guess either of you can answer that too.
I think despite all the conversation around AI, I think it's almost like the thing that you don't quite value unless you use it once. So I think even brands, what I see is that a lot of people have heard about this, but you have to experience it firsthand. You have to do an event, you have to kind of see how fast this workflow was to be able to kind of adopt it. I would say when I see brands being slow, especially in our case, it's more because they're like incredulous that this actually works.
Yeah, I love how you talked about tech being the enabler. That's a huge part of our go-to-market strategy.
Do you think they can hear us? I'm sorry. I feel like, can you guys hear? Okay, maybe I'm just like not hearing.
No, it is harder for us, I think.
Okay, I'm like, louder. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No worries. I was just saying.
We're just having fun. It's Thursday now.
Yeah. At this point, does it matter? I was just saying, I love that what you were saying about tech being the enabler and not the differentiator. Our go-to-market strategy is all around tech should be helping you guys on the brand side drive forward whatever the differentiator is in your business. And I think from an information supply chain perspective, it would be creative generation rather, from you guys coming to us on kind of the tech and activation side and figuring out who should this go to and where and why, and then feeding that data back to you. And I think that's where AI comes in, is there's a lot of jobs that robots are better at doing than humans. And one of them is crunching millions and billions of rows of data and then sending that insight back to you guys on the brand side.
And the next question for Meridith. So being a challenger beauty brand, you talked a little bit when we first chatted just about how you work with Bethany Frankel and how that really impacts the way that you brief. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think as a challenger brand, you have to constantly think in not what formats you're currently advertising in, but what formats are going to be disruptive and are going to sort of stop people in their tracks. So if my budget is way less significant than, say, the largest conglomerate in the beauty category, like I have to think about how that dollar works extra hard. And so we go social first almost all the time. We try to get into the feed, fit the feed, borrow community from the creators that we're partnering with, and really try to introduce ourselves, ingratiate ourselves, and not just buy eyeballs, but borrow the trust that these creators have developed with their communities.
No, I love that. And I guess on to Meridith, and on that note, right, and building up earned media, how have you thought about earned media playing into evaluating the success? I mean, I guess even for both of you, like, what part of the planning does earned and what you get from earned really play into that?
More and more, our most kind of, like if we're working with a client, like a big tentpole type activation, even if they have always on creator marketing going, they might really invest in one moment. We're always collaborating with our interagency team. So, for example, we work on Dove, we collaborate really closely with Edelman, and we think about, okay, we know that culture kind of starts in feed now, but it spills over into traditional media, into other kind of online outlets, and just like the glow of different activations. There's kind of like a back and forth there. And so we're really, really strategic about how we kind of seed moments out in the real world that then, the press covers, there's creators there's like this afterglow. It's all really intentional. And I think, again, to make the biggest splash, you need to think about kind of both channels working in concert.
For us, I think we're so focused on organic. And when we think about earned, it's not just, it's great. And we love when we're here with Bethany Frankel, we're here with Pookie, Campbell Puckett. And when they're posting and tagging us and we're getting stuff that's, we didn't pay for those posts, but they're just sharing the love. Like, of course, that's really important. And they're great partners. But I think even more than that, especially after we launched in Target, we were focused on how many people that we don't actually have a relationship with in any capacity are going into store and discovering our product and making content about how they love it or what's special about it. And so we started to really look at that as a huge indicator of how we were doing and how the consumer was reacting and ultimately how our community was growing.
I know I didn't put this on the list, but how are you all measuring that?
So we have some various tools. We use Plot, we use Tracker, but we can see the number of organic videos that are created. And then that for us can also say, like some of those videos, which I think is so great with TikTok, is that you don't need millions of followers to get millions of views. So some of the, my best friend is my FYP, and I don't really follow that many people. So TikTok is great in the sense that like we've seen so many of our community who have really small followings just go viral because the content is interesting, and our brand is duping all the biggest prestige beauty brands. So we went viral because everyone's like, well, it kind of looks like this, but does it perform like that? So those organic pieces of content, not only how many of them are there, but how many views did some of them get? And how many views were organic. And that's something that we're really obsessed with.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Sometimes we concentrate too much on micro-influencer, macro-influencer, how much share are they going to get, right?
It doesn't matter on TikTok.
Yeah, no, I think it's so true. We even, we use out of home, and I know you talked about this too in an earned way, right? It's like no longer is a channel just a channel specifically for what it used to be used for, right? Out of home is now social. Social is now search.
We have one billboard in Times Square, and we didn't buy it for people walking by. We actually thought it was a great opportunity for us to surprise, delight, and give our creator partners a place to have their bucket list moment, take a picture of it, and force multiply it through their social channels. So like when people say, well, how many people are seeing this in Times Square? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really, it's not really important to us. What's important to us is that Pookie flew to New York 3 times on her own dime to capture her new creative on the billboard, and she has millions of followers, and every time she did that, there was tremendous brand love. So that, I think also you think about out of home and you think about these channels and their purpose, not for everyone, but at least for us and other challenger brands, is not what it was traditionally.
I think that's such a cool use of out of home because as the token technologist, well, one of 2 now, token technologists on the panel, we rack our brains to figure out how many people walked by your billboard, and to hear that you're thinking of this in this more macro way, where the message is almost being conflated with the medium, is such a cool opportunity for us. I think V1 of ad tech was how many people walk by your billboard, but now V2 will be there are so many data points all over the map with all of the different touch points that you guys as marketers are creating with your communities. How do we as the platform stitch them together for you and tell you a story in ways that isn't data overload, but it gives you something to action on for next time?
And then I guess, Chris, back to you. Like working in tech, I imagine that it may be more difficult to get leadership buy-in, especially with certain marketing tactics, right? I think they're sort of thinking, I imagine, extremely performance-based.
Well, I can't be honest because my leadership is here.
Sorry, leadership.
No, but for me, I think it comes back to almost every how do we work better together question is business empathy. How do I make whoever I'm working with look smart? How do I help them achieve their goals? What gets them their next promotion? And then if we center kind of our customers and center the goal, it kind of all works back to that.
I guess, and then or do you want to hop in on that one?
I think the biggest difference that we notice is that as the cost of production of creative goes down, some of the older processes when production was super expensive, then you spend a lot of cycles trying to figure out what is that one video that we should make. You'll spend just so much time and energy. But with tactics like these, what we're basically saying is, hey, if you're smart and you can find ways to create a lot more content, then you will have these spikes of virality. It's hard to predict it, right? So as they say in marketing, right, like, I know that 50% of my budget is working and 50% is not. I just don't know which one is which, right? So in this case, whatever the tech companies are enabling should enable brands to be more brave and be able to do things that they were not doing previously. And by doing more, it's less, there's a little bit of less control. But I think in terms of the objective of getting your brand out, getting more leads, all of those objectives are met because the cost of creating content is going down.
So is your number one objective really when you're talking to clients to get trial and just say like, try it once and you'll come back?
Yeah, I think in the AI space, that's the other biggest thing, right? Because in a lot of cases, folks have tried things but haven't adopted it 100%. And in our case, what we're doing is we're replacing a lot of video production cost, but people are just used to doing it in kind of the legacy way, right? So the first thing in our case, I think from a business strategy with big brands, the thing that has worked the best is having some kind of a trial and letting them experience it once. And once they experience it once, you can see that there is such a massive kind of a shift in the attitude, and sort of skepticism in parts of the team just melts away because you can see the productivity benefits so quickly.
Yeah, I think we all hesitate. And I'm on the media side, so I have wonderful creative partners. And I'll say this is even true on the media side. I think we all hesitate sometimes to feel like we're losing control. Like to feel like I can't control the content that I'm exactly in, right? Like that's the hesitancy to maybe pushing too much into programmatic or feeling like, I think it's the same on the creative side. And again, I don't want to speak for that, but you know, I think people feel like if we use too much tech, we're going to lose control. Or even how do you work with your legal teams to talk about Gen AI and what's going to be appropriate or what they feel comfortable with, right? So I think there's a lot of unknowns. We're certainly only just scratching the surface, but exciting to hear like your take. And I guess even just final question for you all, would love to just hear, like, if you had future CMOs in the room, what would be your advice to them to think about as they're starting on their journey of their careers?
Let's see. I mean, I think talking from kind of the creator marketing angle, what I'm seeing is like the boldest CMOs are recognizing that creators are this very important, almost like multi-channel media companies. Right? And just thinking about how are we reaching those communities in new and exciting ways. So, you know, whether it's newsletters and, you know, the smaller paid communities, the live events that creators are building, and really partnering in a close way with them. And again, seeing more of that super engaged audience. And it may seem like the, you know, CPM is high, but it's truly the right people for a brand to be partnering with. So just kind of being bolder about how you can think about collaborating with creators over the long term.
Totally. And I think, and someone said the other day, that they didn't like, basically there was a debate going on and this particular person didn't necessarily feel like influencer marketing works because it feels like they're being sold to. And my answer to that is completely like, that's on the brand to pick the right people. We at United Airlines find people who love our brand. If someone flew with Delta last week, that's not going to be someone that makes sense for me, right? And I imagine they would feel the exact same way. So I think it's really goes back onto the brand or the agency partner that you're working with on influencer marketing to ensure you're building long-lasting partnerships, not tactical plans with influencers.
I think my bold idea would be for the next generation of CMOs would be not to allow tech to take control, but to allow tech to be the driver for your creativity. So for example, we just launched a AI curated audiences product. And we were working with an organic dog food brand, and we were picking audiences, and we were doing an A/B test with humans versus the AI, and the humans picked pet lovers because, of course, and the AI picked yoga lovers and organic grocery shoppers, and those two segments outperformed the pet lovers. So I think allowing the data to drive more creative decision making would be more interesting.
It all starts with the insight, right?
I think for us, the thing that we have noticed the most is that your budgets can work differently. Like, so the way that you were used to working in the last 2 years, in this particular case, I think there's a little bit of a reallocation of stuff, and that takes a little bit of time to figure out. But I think a mindset of abundance is probably the most kind of like, the biggest driver for success is if you look at all the technologies and you say, this is what I have been enabled, and now I don't have to pick that one winning shot. It's not like you have one shot. So take multiple, you have multiple at bat, and that can really impact over a year what your biggest hits were.
Yeah, on our side, there's so many organizational budgets that are issues, right? Like we have a acquisition team that's a completely different E-team leader. We have a Chase co-brand credit card that is a different. So it's, how do we work holistically to start bridging the gaps to plan more holistically, even if we have silos within our budgets? Like on our team, for instance, people always ask me, like, how much money do you spend in video? And we don't have a video bucket, right? It's like, what is the right thing for this particular strategy? Not that we need to spend a certain amount of money in video, right?
Exactly.
So I think community. Like nothing else matters, and the riches are in the niches. So figure out who your audience is and make them your best friend, because honestly, all the middlemen are going to become less relevant, and your direct connection is to your end consumer, and they're not just a customer anymore. They are a community member, which I believe they're friends at scale. So how can
Love
you
that.
your
Might steal
United
that.
friendship bracelets? I love
I just
that.
gave them one, so you can have one.
Yes,
after
I
this.
want one. But yeah, I think that's critically important. I might be one of the only ones to think, but maybe not. Bethany was saying this last night to us, but like TV is a bit of a dinosaur, linear TV. And I'm sorry if anyone is like really focused on that, but your TV, your sort of like entertainment is in your pocket. It's your phone. It's the social platforms that you spend hours scrolling on. And so how are you getting into the feed? How are you communicating to your consumer and bringing them in and giving them a reason not just to watch that campaign or that video, but like an always on heartbeat of, hey, we're going to like interact with you all day. And so I think thinking about it through that lens for the future marketers in the room, like that's where we are today. And it's only going to get more so tomorrow. So I think that's my advice.
Awesome. You guys all did amazing. Made it my job that much easier. So thank you so much to my esteemed panelists. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a
Sorry I ran on the stage 5 minutes late.
Look,
I made an entrance.
It's Thursday. I said we can do anything we want now.
It's good. I mean, it's good that we all showed up at all, right?
Yes, actually, yes.
We
Awesome.
made it.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.